Nice to see you all. Okay. Um, Sorry for starting just slightly late today as well. When I was trying to start things, everything was different. So I hope I'm able to control the presentation properly today because everything is working in a slightly different way to how it has been other times when I've been doing this. Yeah, so bear with me if there are any little hiccups. So anyway, I can see lots of people saying hello and where they're from in the chat box now. And usually we've got people from all around the world, and I can see people mentioning lots of different countries, lots of different places. So that's fantastic. Brilliant. Great. As I often say, I love how international we are here. So it's great to see you all again. Today, we are thinking about writing task 1, describing a map, changes in the past. And throughout the session today, we'll continue using the chat box because at various points I will ask you to respond to some things, so you can put your responses into the chat box. There is also the Q&A box, and Q&A stands for questions and answers. And towards the end of the session, there will be some time for me to address some of your questions. So if you have questions, particularly related to the topic of today's session, then you can put those into the Q&A box, and I'll be having a look at those later to and trying to address some of them. Sorry, I'm a little bit distracted by the fact that everything is different today. When I've gone into Zoom today and started using it, everything is just a little bit different. It's a bit distracting, and I feel like the screen is sharing in a different way. I think you can see like all of my browser rather than just the presentation. That's what it looks like to me anyway. I'm not sure if I can change it so that you can see it more fully without seeing everything else around the side. Oh, well, I don't suppose it really matters. Let's just carry on then. So yes, as I said, today we're thinking about IELTS writing task 1. So this is for the academic version of the exam. So it's academic IELTS writing task 1 and describing maps. So we'll be thinking about interpreting, or in other words, understanding the maps. It mentions here writing an overview, but we'll be looking at writing all the sections, the introduction, the general overview, and the main body as well. Key language, and as I mentioned, some time for questions and answers as well. Okay, so by the end of this webinar, you will be able to identify key features of a map, write a clear introduction, overview, and main body, accurately describe locations, and use passive forms and nouns to describe changes. Okay, so here is our example task for today. It says the map below shows the development of a seaside village between 1995 and now. The next sentence says, write a short report for a university lecture describing the information below. So that is not the way that sentence is usually phrased. It's along the lines of, let me try and, I can't remember the exact wording, but it tells you that you need to report the information and make comparisons where necessary. Okay, so of course, when you're doing this task, you need to describe the maps. The instructions in the exam will tell you that you need to write at least 150 words. And they will also tell you to spend 20 minutes on this task. And this part here at the left, summarize the information by selecting key features. So that is similar to part, that's like part of the wording of the second sentence of the task. Okay. So here are some questions that you can think about when doing this type of task to help you with it. So what does the map describe? Describe is not really the right word to use there. Maps don't describe things, they show things. Okay. So what does the map show? Okay. And the first sentence of the task, in this case, the map below shows the development of a seaside village between 1995 and now. That will tell you what the map shows and what the maps show. And of course, look at them yourselves for more detail. The second question on the left, what's the time period? So there will be information about the time that the maps relate to. So in this case, we've got one map from 1995 and another map from the present. Okay. And how will this affect the language you use? So depending on the years that the maps are from, that's going to affect tenses that you use when you are writing. So for example, here we've got 1995. So you will find that you are using past simple to write about 1995 to talk about completed action in the past. You will find that you are using present simple to talk about the map that shows how things are in the present. You might also be using present perfect to talk about changes that happened between 1995 and the present. Okay, so we use one way that we use present simple is to talk about something that started in the past and continues up to and includes the present. So for changes that happened between the two times that we have here, you might be using that. That doesn't mean those are the only tenses that you can or should use. You should use tenses as they are relevant and correct to what you are writing. We've got some other examples here. Okay. The maps below show the village of Stokeford in 1930 and 2010 or 2010. After the year 2000, for the first, from 2000 to 2009, we tend to say the dates in the full thousands, okay, as I just did then. And then from 2010 onwards, we either say like 2010 or we'd say 2010 from then. So we can think about these questions again for these maps here. So we've talked about what the map shows already by looking at the sentence that introduces the maps. How are they different from the previous maps? So this time we've got one map which shows us what things were like in 1930 and another map that shows us what things were like in 2010 or 2010. So this time, both of the maps are in the past. Okay. So when we were thinking about the other two maps and we saw that one of those maps shows us things in the present I said you would probably find that you were using present simple to write about that map. But of course, that wouldn't be the case here. And here is another one, or another two. So the plans below show the layout of a university sports centre now and how it will look after the redevelopment. So one thing to notice here is that we've got the word plan being used here rather than map. So in fact, I just want to check something from the previous one. No, that's fine. Okay. So it's important to know the difference between these words. So you can see here that we are looking at a building. So when we are thinking about a diagram that shows the layout of a building, that's when we use the word plan. In the other examples that we looked at before, they were places. So they were the outside areas. So when we're looking at diagrams that show the layout of places, outside areas, you know, towns, cities, areas of the countryside, then we use the word map. Okay, so here we're looking at a plan. And regarding the time, so the first one shows us a plan of the University Sports Centre in the present, whereas the second one shows us a plan, well, a future plan. So what the University Sports Centre might look like in the future. So when you are writing about the one in the present, you'll find you're using a lot of present simple to describe that one. With the one for the future, notice that it says future plans. So when you are writing about this one, you'll be using a lot of language like it is predicted that for example, that the sports center pool will still be in the same place. Okay, just a quick example off of the top of my head there. Okay. So although it's the future, that doesn't necessarily mean that you'll be using future tenses. It'll be more likely that you'll be using language to talk about predictions. Okay, so it is expected, it is predicted that, okay, because these are just plans for the future. Okay. Although we also do use be going to talk about plans for the future, so you might find that you're using that as well. Okay. So that's a tense that you might use. Okay, so here we are back at the main example that we are focusing on today. Oh, actually, this slide is repeated. We're going to come back to this later. I'll just go past it for now. Okay, this is the one we want to look at now. Okay. So here are some other questions that you can ask yourself when you are trying to identify key features in the maps. Okay. So what changes can you see? What are the most important changes? How could you group them together? So the second question there about what are the most important changes, that's a question to think about when you are writing the general overview. Okay, we'll come on to that more later. Okay, and then the last question, how could you group them together? That's an important question to think about when you are organizing paragraphs in the main body section. Okay, you should try and group similar things together, and then those groups become your different paragraphs in the main body. Okay. So For example, here, some points that we could mention are for 1995, the first map, fishing is something that we can see. And also there is farmland and a forest park. And when we think about things that we can see in the map that shows the present, apartments and housing. Okay, so that's something that's changed. Okay, before there was the fishing port, the fish market. Okay, but now there are apartments where that used to be, and the amount of housing has increased in general. There are more houses in other areas as well. And also there is in the present a golf course and tennis courts as well. And that's a change from what we mentioned earlier, where there was farmland and a forest park. So here we can see the 3 sections that you need to have. So the first section is the introduction. The second section is the general overview. And then after that, we have the main body. You can see here the main body is separated into 2 sections. That is because the example that we are looking at today has 2 paragraphs in the main body. But as I briefly touched on earlier, the way to decide on the number of paragraphs in the main body is to look at the information that you are presented with and decide how to group together similar information. So you put similar information together, and that becomes each group of similar information becomes a paragraph. So let's look at each of these sections in a little more detail. So the introduction first. So it says here, state what the maps show by paraphrasing the title. So where it says title here, what it's really referring to is the sentence in the task that introduces what the information shows. Okay, so you should try to paraphrase that in order to write your introduction. Okay, just as a caveat to that, that doesn't mean that that's the only source of information for your introduction. Of course, you can look at the maps themselves in this case, or if you're doing a task 1 with with different information, look at whatever the information is itself and include anything else that's relevant for the introduction as well. Okay. It says here that you can write the introduction in 1 or 2 sentences. So just to be clear, there is no specific number of sentences that you should have in the introduction. But yes, in general, you can in fact usually write the introduction in just 1 sentence, and sometimes you might need 2 sentences. Okay, but there is nothing that says you need to have a particular number of sentences in that section, but usually you can do it just in 1, sometimes 2, but usually it's just 1. Okay, so the introduction for task 1 is really quite short. Okay, so next, the general overview. So in this section, you need to explain what the information shows in general, okay? And it is very important that you include this section. Sometimes people don't include the general overview. It might be that you don't know that you need a general overview, like maybe nobody has taught you or told you that you need one, or maybe you just don't realize that you need one for another reason, or maybe you have been told but you don't see the relevance of it, so you don't bother including it. So let me be like very clear that you definitely need to have a general overview. There are 4 areas that you are assessed on, and one of the assessment areas is task response or task achievement, and that is about how well you address the task. So in other words, how well you answer the question. And for that assessment area, in order to achieve band 6 or above, you need to have a general overview. So if you don't include a general overview, if you don't have a general overview, then the maximum band score that you can get for task achievement or task response for task 1 will be 5, regardless of how well you address the task in the other sections. So you might write the perfect introduction in terms of addressing the task, and you might write the perfect main body in terms of addressing the task, but you just haven't included a general overview, and that will mean that you won't be able to get more than band 5 for task achievement or task response, because in order to get band 6 or above for task achievement or task response, you need to have a general overview. So it is vital that you include this part. So as I said, in this part, you need to explain what the information shows in general. It says here, make a general statement about 2 to 3 changes. So again, just to be clear, there's no particular number of points that you should make in the general overview. The number of points that will be relevant will depend on the information that you are presented with. So that is part of your skill in doing your piece of writing and in addressing the task, is that you need to be able to look at the information and identify what is relevant to be included in the general overview. Okay, so when we're thinking about maps or plans, have a look at what the key changes are. Okay, those would be the important things to mention in the general overview. Okay, but different maps and different plans might have different numbers of significant changes, and it's not even necessarily just changes that you would want to write about. Also, things that haven't changed are important too. Okay. Here it mentions the number of sentences again. So the number of sentences that you have in the general overview can be affected by the number of points that you are making. So again, to be clear, there's no particular number of sentences that you should have in the general overview. Basically just what I said before, you need to look at the information, decide what's relevant, what are the key points to make here, the important points to make here, and cover those points. Okay, and of course that's going to affect the number of sentences. There's no particular number of sentences that you should be aiming for. You should be aiming to cover the points that are relevant. Okay, so significant changes and also things that are significant because they haven't changed. Okay, so moving on to the main body. So here, this particular main body has been split up into 2 sections, 2 paragraphs. And it's saying that each paragraph is describing a specific group of changes. So as I said before, though, the number of paragraphs is something that you need to decide yourself. Again, that is part of your skill of writing. Okay, and remember, writing is not just the writing itself, it's all about planning as well, because writing is a whole process, and one of the stages in the process is planning. And as part of planning, that's when you should be thinking about how to group the information together. Think about information that's similar. That's often a good way to do it. Think about what's similar, put that similar information into groups, and then those groups form your different paragraphs. Okay. So there's no particular number of paragraphs. You need to decide the number of paragraphs based on the information that you are presented with and how you choose to organize that information. Okay. And there can often be more than one way of organizing the information. Okay, so let's think about the introduction now. So we have got our example maps again here, as well as the sentence from the task, which introduces what the information shows. The map below shows the development of a seaside village between 1995 and now. So as I said before, when you write your introduction, you should to do that, you should try to paraphrase this sentence from the task. So to help you paraphrase, you can think about synonyms. So those are words with the same or similar meaning. Think about the word form, the word order, changing voice as well. Okay. So we'll look at how the introduction could be written by paraphrasing the sentence. Okay. So the two maps illustrate how the layout of what do you think could come next? Your chance to contribute. What could come next here in this sentence? So put your responses into the chat box. It's always nice to hear from you. What do you think? I'll give you a moment to have a think and to type your responses. Okay, great. So we're getting a few now. Okay, so the two maps illustrate how the layout of... Okay, so yeah, so somebody said a seaside village. Yeah, so that's the words we've got there. Yeah, coastal. Yeah, you could say like a coastal town, a coastal village. Yeah. Okay, yeah, a village next to the sea. Okay, great. Lots of nice suggestions. Good, well done. And in fact, here we have a village by the sea. Okay. So the two maps illustrate how the layout of a village by the sea has changed, okay, from 1995 to the present day. Okay. Okay, so let's move on to the general overview next. So we've got a reminder of some main points that we pointed out before. Okay, so 1995, there is fishing, there's farmland and a forest park, whereas in the present, there are apartments and there's more housing, there's a golf course and tennis courts as well. Okay. Okay, so a reminder here about how essential it is to include the general overview in order to get band 6 or more for task achievement or task response. Okay, so I was talking about that earlier. So here's another reminder here. And it also says, summarize the key changes and the most important features. So key changes, but also it said most important features. So as well as things changing, it can also be important that things have stayed the same. Okay, so you shouldn't just be thinking that you should just focus on things that have changed. Things that are still the same are also important. Okay. Again, it says 1 to 3 sentences, but as I said before, there's no particular number of sentences. that's going to be affected by the number of points that you're making, which is affected by the information that you're presented with. But don't go into detail. So yes, so you want to keep more specific information for the main body. Okay, in the general overview, you're explaining what the information shows in general. Okay, and at the bottom here, it says begin with overall. So I would completely agree with that. Overall is a fantastic word to start your general overview with. It shows that you're going to be writing about the information in general. It really signals to the examiner that this is your general overview. And whether or not you've got a general overview is going to be one of the first things that the examiner is looking for, because as I've said before, whether or not you've got a general overview is one of the determiners as to whether or not you can get band 6 or above for task response or task achievement. Okay, so you want to make it really, really clear to the examiner that this is the start of your general overview. Okay, so overall, it is that. What could go in this gap? Going to get your help to write this again now. So what could go in the gap that we have here? Okay, so overall it is clear that, it is evident that. Yeah, those are nice suggestions. Good, right, well done, good. So clear is what we've got here. Okay, so it continues. Overall, it is clear that provision for and leisure facilities. So what do you think could go in the gap you can see now? So again, put your suggestions in the chat box. Provision for and leisure facilities. What do you think? Okay, so housing and leisure facilities. Lots of people suggesting housing. So yeah, residential. Okay, right, nice suggestions. Okay, so accommodation is what we've got here. So overall, it is clear that provision for accommodation and leisure facilities has what? What could come here? What do you think? Yeah, has changed, has developed. Yep. Those are nice suggestions. Okay, yeah, has expanded. Okay. And increased is what we've got here. Land which was used for Okay, so we've got 3 gaps here. So let's think about the first gap. What could go in the first gap? Put your suggestions in the chat box again. Overall, it is clear that provision for accommodation and leisure facilities has increased even, if I can say the word properly. Land. Yeah. So, yeah. Okay. So some people are suggesting farmland. So we tend to write that as like one word. Okay, farmland. I've seen some people saying things like agriculture. I can't pronounce anything today. So we'd need to make that into a different form. Okay, so agricultural land. So the word that we need here though is replacing. Okay, so replacing land which was used for So what do you think could go in the second gap? Which was, okay, so mainly used for, previously used for. Okay, so previously. And the last gap that's here now, what could go there? So, okay, yeah. So previously used for farming. Lots of people suggesting farming. Okay, so farming or agriculture. Okay. Forestry and commercial, what do you think? Yeah, commercial purposes. Lots of people suggesting that. Okay. Fishing is what we've got here. Okay, commercial fishing. Okay, so let's just see if we can go back and read over it. Okay, so overall, it is clear that provision for accommodation and leisure facilities has increased, replacing land which was previously used for agricultural, forestry, and commercial fishing. Okay, so we're going to look at some useful language now. So we've got 4 columns here. So number 1, expanding something. Number 2, removing something. Number 3, adding something. And number 4, changing something into something new. And you are going to see some words and phrases, and you need to decide which column you think they should go into. So I think with some of the words and phrases that you're going to see, sometimes it might be possible for some of them to go into more than one column. So I think sometimes there will be a variety of responses for that reason, but ultimately they're just going to go into one column at the moment. But some of them maybe could fit in more than one. Okay. Let's go through them though. So constructed, where do you think this one should go? You can just type the number for each column to indicate where you think it should go. Okay, so I can see quite a few people saying 3 or 4. Okay, so adding something or changing something into something new. Okay, so it's going in number 3 here. Okay. Next, demolished. Okay, I think everybody is saying number 2. Yep, removing something. Okay, made bigger. What do you think for this one? Lots of people saying number 1. Some people saying number 4, but most people are saying number 1. Yep. Okay. Renovated. What do you think? Lots of people saying number 4. Yep. Removed. What do you think for this one? Lots of people saying number 2. Developed. What do you think? Okay, so this is one where we're getting quite a variety of answers. Yes, so it's gone into number 1, as you can see here. Okay, but I totally understand why so many of you were suggesting all of the different numbers here, because it's definitely the meaning of this word is definitely much wider than expanding something. When you're developing things, you might expand something, you might remove things, you might add something, and you probably are changing something into something new. Okay, so yes, this is definitely one of the ones that could go into a lot of the different columns, if not all of them, in fact. Okay, built is the next one. Okay, so lots of people saying 3. Okay, so yeah, so built, that goes quite well with the word that we've got right above constructed in terms of them being similar. Okay. Pulled down. Yeah, too good. Converted. Lots of people saying number 4. Yeah. Introduced. Lots of people saying 3. Yeah. Planted. Do you think for this one? Lots of people saying 3. Extended. Okay, so lots of people saying number 1. Yeah. Okay. I thought more people would have suggested number 3 as well, because if you're extending something, you're going to be adding something new in order to make it bigger. Knocked down. Yeah, 2. Replaced. Okay, so lots of people say number 4. Good. Made into. Again, lots of 4s. Yeah, good. Okay, enlarged. Yeah, 1, good. Cut down. Yeah, 2s, 2s, 2s. Remodeled. Yeah, lots of 4s. Good. Created. Based on the ones we've got left, where do you think it could go? So I think most people are saying 3, but some people are saying number 1 as well. Yeah, 3. Okay, and expanded something. Well, we have only got 1 spot left, and it is in the column with the heading expanding something. So that one definitely fits well there. Okay. So here we're going to see some close-ups of part of our example map and think about the changes that we can see here and different ways that we can write about these changes. So I'll just complete these gaps as an example first. So builders have added a car park to the hotel. Okay, so that's one thing that we could say here. However, it's more likely in task 1 that we're going to write about this by using the passive voice. So in that case, we would say a car park has been added to the hotel. Alternatively, we could say another change is the addition of a car park to the hotel. Okay, so in the first 2, we've got the verb form being used, first in the active voice and then in the passive voice. And then in the third one, we have the same word, but this time we've got the noun being used. Okay, so we'll look at some others and you can have a go this time. I'll still just show you the first one to get you started. Okay, so the town council has expanded the housing development. So what could we make that into here? The housing development. So putting it into the passive voice here. What could we say? Okay, great. Yeah, loads of people getting this. Okay, has been expanded. Good, great. Well done. Fantastic. Okay, and the other example, a further difference is the of the housing development. So we've got expanded as a verb. So how could we change that to the noun form here? Yeah, so lots of people have got this already in the chat box. Good. Yeah, the expansion. Ugh, I'm just tripping up over all my words today. A further difference is the expansion of the housing development. Okay, good. Here is another one. Okay, the local authority has replaced the fish market with apartment buildings. So instead, we could say the fish market by apartment buildings. So here we're looking for the passive voice. Yeah, good, good, good. Lots of people have got this in the chat box. Yeah, the fish market has been replaced by apartment buildings. And this one, perhaps the most significant change has been the of the fish market by apartment buildings. Yeah, good, good, good. Okay, replacement. Good for the noun. Okay, great. Right, well done. Good. Okay, so we'll have a look at compass points next. Because when you are looking at maps and writing about maps, you often need to explain the location or state the location of the things that you're writing about. And you can do that using compass points. So it's important to know what they are. So we'll start with north, and we're going to go in this direction. Okay, so next is northeast. So what's the next point? Yes, of course. Good, good, good. East. Great. Okay. And continuing in the same direction, what will we have next? Yeah, good, good, good. Okay, southeast. Good, great. And then, yeah, of course, south. Good. And the next one. Yeah, good. Southwest. Good. And then, yeah, good. West, good. And the last one here. Yeah, good, good. Northwest. Okay, great. Good, good. Okay, so compass points. Okay, so useful. So often the maps, yeah, sometimes the plans as well. Yeah, often maps and plans will have a compass on them to indicate where north is. However, you do get maps and plans that don't include that. In that situation, I think it is reasonable to assume that you are looking at the map or the plan with north being, you know, this direction on the paper. Okay, so assume that north is the top of the map or the plan that you're looking at, if there isn't a compass point on it. And so you can still use the compass points to indicate where things are, even if there isn't one on the map or the plan itself. Okay. Okay, so thinking about the main body next. So over on the right, the left, it says here first, group details together to make a logical flow. For example, group by the type of change, the importance, the location. Okay, so those are some examples of how you can group information together. And then you can form different paragraphs based on those different groups of information. Okay, so we're going to start looking at the paragraphs in this section, and you can complete the gaps again. So one key change is the of apartment buildings. What do you think could go there? Okay, right, the expansion of apartment buildings. Yeah, the development of apartment buildings. Yeah, the construction of apartment buildings, the addition of apartment buildings. Okay, right, nice. Okay, so construction is what we've got here. So one key change is the construction of apartment buildings on the side of the waterfront. What do you think for here? Okay, so we're getting a few different suggestions. of what could go in this gap. So west, okay? Okay, so on the west side of the waterfront. At the site of the fish market and port. What do you think for this gap? Okay, so I just to respond to some other things I can see in the comments. So some people are asking about waterfront. So notice that the word waterfront has the word water in it. So think about where you can see water on the map to help you to understand waterfront. Okay, so we've got the sea on the map at the bottom there. Okay, so that's the water. So the waterfront is beside the sea. Okay, so for this gap, we have got former. Okay, the former fish market and port. In several restaurants have been across the road. So the first gap, what do you think could go here? Yeah, so lots of people suggested addition. Yeah, in addition. Okay, and the other gap. Several restaurants have been across the road. Yeah, lots of people have suggested built, and that's what we've got here. Okay, some people said constructed as well. Yeah. Where there were shops. Yeah, where previously there were shops. Yeah, lots of people suggesting previously. And that's what we've got here too. The housing development in the area has also been Okay, so the first gap, what do you think could go here? Ah. Oh, I like that. Somebody suggested the Bay Area. Yeah, that's nice. Okay, so we've got Northwest here. Okay, yes, so we're coming on to talk about the one that's in the Northwest rather than the one in the Bay Area, though. Okay. So the other gap, the housing development in the Northwest area has also been, yeah, expanded, developed. Yeah, extended is what we've got here. And in 1995, there were 12 houses in total to 16 in the present day. Yeah, compared. And rising is what we've got here. Okay, rising to 16 in the present day. So what I would say about this, though, is that so it looks like the person who has written this has actually sat there and counted the houses. So let's see. 1995, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yeah, they sat there and they've counted the houses in 1995. And I think they've probably done the same for the present. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So they've sat there and counted the houses as well. Okay, so what I would say about that, though, is that when you see a map like this, I wouldn't literally take it to mean that there were 12 houses in 1995 and that there are 16 houses in the present. I would say that the houses are pictorial representations of the fact that there are houses there rather than them actually indicating the specific number of houses. Just like if we look at 1995, there's a forest park area. And you wouldn't actually count the trees. You wouldn't go, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. You wouldn't count the trees and say there were 11 trees in the forest. Okay, it's just a pictorial representation of a forest. It's not actually there to indicate that there were, how many did I count? Was it 11? 11 trees in the forest, okay? In the forest park. Okay, so sometimes I see people doing this, and I can understand why they do it, because when we're thinking about other types of information that you can be presented with in task one, writing task one, for example, graphs and charts and tables, that type of information in particular contains figures, and when you are reporting information that contains figures, then you need to include the figures. Okay, that's really, really important. Okay, and if you do choose to interpret maps literally and include specific numbers of houses as we have in this example, then there's nothing wrong with doing that. It would be fine. But really, the more realistic way of interpreting it is just that the pictures of the houses are there to illustrate that there were houses there in general, or there are houses there in general. They're not necessarily there to indicate like the specific number of houses. Okay, so you don't need to be sitting there in the exam counting the number of houses or whatever it is, trees or anything like that. Okay, on maps. Okay, and writing down numbers like that. Okay, if you do, like, it's okay if you do it, but you're kind of wasting your time by sitting there counting the number of pictures of whatever it is on a map, because really they're just there to indicate that that feature is there on the map, not necessarily to indicate that there is a specific number of whatever it is that that the picture shows. So basically my point is that you should be focusing on and spending your time doing things that you need to do rather than wasting your time sitting there counting the number of houses. Okay. Okay, anyway, so I think, yes, we are at the end of that paragraph, so we'll just read it over. One key change is the construction of apartment buildings on the west side of the waterfront at the site of the former fish market and port. In addition, several restaurants have been built across the road where previously there were shops. The housing development in the northwest area was also extended. In 1995, there were 12 houses in total, rising to 16 in the present day. Okay, so continuing, another significant development is the of a golf course and tennis courts. So what could go in this gap? Okay, construction. Yep, nice suggestion. Okay, yeah, establishment. That's good too. Okay, yeah, development, addition. Okay, so creation is what we've got here in the area. So where are they? Okay, so yeah, the northeastern area. Okay, so yeah, so some people say northeast as well. It would be fine also just to say northeast, or rather to say northeast instead. Which has agricultural land and a forest park. Okay, so replaced is what we've got here. A hotel and cafe in the corner remain the same. What could we say here? Yeah, okay, yeah, southeast. A car park has been to the hotel. So the first gap, what do you think could go there? So, however, yeah. Okay, however, a car park has been to the hotel. Added. Yeah, and that's what we've got here too. Okay, so we'll read over this one if I can manage to go back. Another significant development is the creation of a golf course and tennis courts in the northeastern area, which has replaced agricultural land and a forest park. A hotel and cafe in the southeast corner remain the same. However, a car park has been added to the hotel. Okay, so here we've got the whole thing. So we'll just read through all of it in its entirety. The two maps illustrate how the layout of a village by the sea has changed from 1995 to the present day. Overall, it is clear that provision for accommodation and leisure facilities has increased, replacing land which was previously used for agriculture, forestry, and commercial fishing. One key change is the construction of apartment buildings on the west side of the waterfront at the site of the former fish market and port. In addition, several restaurants have been built across the road where previously there were shops. The housing development in the northwest area has also been extended. In 1995, there were 12 houses in total, rising to 16 in the present day. Another significant development is the creation of a golf course and tennis courts in the northeastern area, which has replaced agricultural land and a forest park. A hotel and cafe in the southeast corner remain the same. However, a car park has been added to the hotel. Okay, so just some other tips down the side. Don't start writing right away. Make a plan. So I mentioned earlier that writing is a process, and one of the stages in that process is planning. So be sure to do that first before writing. Don't spend more than 20 minutes on task one. So the whole writing exam is 60 minutes, and the instructions will tell you to spend 20 minutes on task one. Make sure you only spend 20 minutes on task one because you will need the other 40 minutes for task two. And the instructions will tell you to spend 40 minutes on task two. And the amount of time that the instructions in the exam tell you to spend on each task is actually representative of how much each task is worth in terms of your overall band score for writing. So, as I said, the whole exam is 60 minutes. For task one, you should spend 20 minutes. That is a third of the time. And for task two, you should spend 40 minutes. You should spend 40 minutes on task two, and that is 2/3 of the time. And that weighting of time also relates to the weighting of each task. So task one contributes to 1/3 of your overall writing score, and task two contributes to 2/3 of your overall writing score. So if you decide to spend more than 20 minutes on task one, then that just means that you are actually spending longer on the task that is worth less. Okay, so don't do that. So 20 minutes on task one and then 40 minutes on task two. Next point, don't count your words. It's a waste of time. You're wasting your time if you do that. So don't. Do check your writing. So after you have written everything, again, this is part of the stages of the writing process. Okay, checking for mistakes and correcting mistakes is part of that. So if you find mistakes, correct them. And also do practice with different kinds of tasks. So today we've been looking at maps and plans, but in task one, you can be presented with different types of information. You can be presented with charts and graphs or tables or diagrams that show a process, or like we've looked at today, maps and plans. And one that people often forget is also objects. You can get diagrams of objects as well. So it's a good idea to practice with all the different kinds of information that you can be presented with. Okay, so before I have a look at your questions, I just need to tell you about this slide because you can have lessons with us. I'll read out what it says here. So one-on-one online IELTS with tutor. Receive guidance and instruction from experienced IELTS tutors on how to approach and overcome the challenges of the IELTS exam. A customized course to meet the specific goals of each individual. Flexible class schedule that can be adapted to accommodate the preferences and availability of the student. So the classes can be at a time that suits you, and they can also be about what you want them to be about. So if you want to just focus on one or two or however many parts of the exam, you can do that. Equally, if you want to focus on all parts of the exam, you can do that too. And you can have lessons with me. So my name is Gillian Scott. I'll put that in the chat box. There it is. So if you would like lessons with me, you can mention that when you contact us. Just say, I'd like to have lessons with Gillian Scott, please. I'll just put my name in the chat box again. There it is again. Okay, right. So I was going to say, let's have a look at your questions, but there's only one question. This has never happened before. There's usually lots and lots of questions. So it says, is this for general or education? I think you might mean general or academic. So there are two versions of the IELTS exam. There's there's general IELTS and there's academic IELTS. I did actually answer your question right at the start. Maybe you missed it. That's okay. I'll tell you now. So we have been thinking about the academic version of the IELTS exam today, because task 1 in the writing exam is different depending on whether you are doing academic IELTS or general IELTS. So today we have been thinking about writing task 1 for academic IELTS. Okay, so that's where you are presented with some information and you need to report the information. Okay. Okay, there are a few more questions now. Okay, so someone's asking about the difference between the academic version and the general version. Okay, so I have all that information with me, so I'll go through it with you. Okay. So some parts are the same and some parts are different. So we've been thinking about writing today. So I've said already that task 1 is different in the writing exam. So if you are doing the academic version, then task 1 is like what we've been looking at today. So you're presented with some information and you need to report the information. But if you are doing the general version of the exam, then in task 1, you will be asked to write a letter. Okay. But task 2 is the same in that you write an essay in task 2. Okay, so for general IELTS and for academic IELTS, you write an essay in task 2, part 2 of the writing exam. Okay, so for the other sections of the exam, so some parts are the same and some parts are different. Okay, so let me just check so I can tell you this correctly. So the speaking is the same for both sections. sorry, not sections, for both types of exam. And also the listening is the same for both types, the academic exam and the general exam. But the other section that is different is the which has differences is the reading section. Okay, so for the academic exam, you are given 3 reading texts, and they are like kind of academic in nature. Okay, they're written for a general audience, but they are that sounds a bit contradictory to say they're academic in nature, but they're written for for a general audience. What I just mean is that you know the language isn't like so technical that it's too academic. But you have 3 reading passages, and you answer questions about them. But the general one is different. So in the first section, you have a few short passages, and then in the second section, it's like work related, and then the third section is more of a like a general interest piece. Okay. Okay, so those are the differences. Let me have a look at your other questions, because we've got quite a few more now. Okay, right. So I can see a few people asking the same thing about a conclusion. So you do not need to have a conclusion for academic IELTS writing task 1. Some people are asking why. Well, it's not a part that is required in this type of writing. Different styles of writing have different sections in them, and this is a section that you don't need to have here. You can put one in if you want, by the way, but you don't have to have it. Okay, so there are other types of writing that don't have conclusions. Recipes don't have conclusions. A letter doesn't have a conclusion. Okay, so there are lots of styles, lots of different genres of writing that don't have conclusions. And this is a genre of writing that does not require a conclusion. As I said, if you want to put one in, you can, but you don't need to put one in. And if you write a conclusion, you might find that you're actually repeating a lot of things that you've already said in the general overview. So you don't need one. You can put one in if you want, but it's not an essential part. The parts that you need are the introduction, the general overview, and the main body. Let's see, what else do we have here? Okay, right. Well, the other couple of questions here, people again are asking similar things about, you know, what can they do to improve. So you just need to keep practicing and learning more about English and how to do all the different parts of the exam. So remember, when you're being assessed, of course you are being assessed on your English, but English isn't the only thing that you should be working on when you're preparing for the exam. It's really important to develop exam skills. So that means learning about the exam and what's expected and what's required in the exam itself, and practicing those skills too. Okay, that's all really important as well. So all of those things are important. Okay, right. So that's it then. So we'll leave it there for now. And I will wish you good luck with your English in general. And if or when you go on to do your English, sorry, not your English exam, your IELTS exam, then good luck with that too. Oh, and before I stop sharing the screen, I should have just pointed out the fact that you can have lessons with us again. So I will just mention that again before I go. And if you want to have lessons with me, my name is Gillian Scott. I'll just put it in the chat again. There you go. So if you would like lessons with me, you can say I'd like lessons with Gillian Scott when you contact us. But yes, as I was saying, I wish you good luck with your English in general, and also good luck if and when you take your IELTS exam as well. Okay, and I hope you all have a good day.